Oh yeah, look at all this stuff right here. We got that, we got that, we have stuff everywhere, fellas. What is up? How are you doing? Thank you for joining us back here on the channel. You know, hey, nice fall time of the year. The temperatures are starting to drop down. The days are getting a little shorter. And for me, my antennas go up a little bit this time of the year for fishing, right? A lot of people go hunting. I know there's lots of you guys that are in the deer stand right now, but I'm gonna tell you right now, fall fishing can be a lot of fun. It can be a little frustrating at the same time too. And in today's video, what we're gonna talk about is we're gonna talk about the best fishing lures for the month of October. That's right, we've got a bunch of stuff here. I'm gonna talk about some really important tips on how to catch those finicky bass sometimes, because they can be a little tough. And we're also gonna talk about how you guys can win all of this tackle right here. So that being said, best fishing lures for October. All right, so first of all, we have all these lures and different things to talk about. 4 or 5 different things we're gonna talk about, because in the fall, when this water temperature starts to fall a little bit, the days get a little shorter, these fish are starting to put on their feed bag. They're starting to get ready for wintertime, because depending on where you are in the country, you know, your lakes could be frozen in the next 2 months. You know, and that's a big deal. So these bass, when that temperature, it kind of gets out of that dog days of summer, that's where we're leaving, and we're gonna get into that feed time of the year. And these fish really focus on shad, mostly shad, to be honest with you. We're gonna talk about that. But also, let's talk about these baits right here. Let's talk about Mystery Tackle Box sent me some cool stuff here. We're gonna be giving these 3 boxes away, and we're also gonna be giving away these 3 boxes that I assembled specifically for you guys. A box full of soft plastics, like little frogs and stuff. There's some more frogs and crankbaits in there, and a finesse box, all in Leer Lock boxes. And we're gonna give these away, all of this. We're gonna give 1 to each winner, and here's how you win. So 6 winners. Drop a comment down below and let me know what your favorite technique is and favorite bait in the month of October. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and I'm sure that people are gonna wanna read in the comments down below. They can probably learn a tip or 2 from you guys. So love to hear your favorite bait and technique for the month of October. Drop those down below, and we're gonna be picking a winner next month. When we do the video in November, we're gonna reveal the 6 winners. So guys, thank you very much for that, and hopefully you guys enjoy that. But that being said, let's jump right into the Mystery Tackle Box thing, okay? This right here, before we get into my baits that I've chosen here, I've got them off to the side. Mystery Tackle Box is a great subscription box, okay? It comes each month full of baits that are just awesome, right? It gives me an opportunity to try new things, new baits, new brands, because a lot of times as fishing goes, we get set in our ways, right? I mean, look, there's a lot of baits that work, and lures are tools, but I like having lots of different tools, because there's certain situations that I find myself in, especially in the fall. This is kind of the time of the year when you need to kind of experiment with some different things, because these fish, they get finicky, right? And so anyways, the Mystery Tackle Box, this is the Elite box that got sent to me, and let's open this thing up, okay? In this box this month, we've got the 10,000 fish. This is the Headhunter. It's a cool little swim bait, and what's really awesome about this bait right here, real quick, guys, and this is what I love about Ketchco, is your innovation, right? So you look at this bait and you say, okay, look at this thing. It's like a little bluegill, right? And you say, well, what the heck is that, like a little toy for your bathtub? Like, what is that? There's not even a hook on it. Oh, yes, there is. Check it out, guys. The hook is hidden inside of that, okay? And that pivots up. So when you hook a fish, this hook will pivot out and keep that fish buttoned up. That little bait right there by 10,000 Fish by Ketchco is pretty darn cool, okay? And again, in the fall, these fish are gonna be feeding on bait fish, and this could be a big deal, no matter where you live. That could be a big deal. It's pretty weedless, so that's a cool little bait. A Lipless Crankbait by Duo. Duo's a great brand. It's a Japanese brand. It's a very expensive bait. You know, you're gonna pay $14, $15 in any store for that particular bait right there, and it comes in your box this month. So that's a great Lipless Crankbait, white color, which is good. We'll talk about that in these tips. I've got some really great lures here that I cannot wait to show you, and some little tips are going to help you catch those fish. Now look at this one here. This is a Weston little topwater bait, and little walking bait. It's got a little concave front to it. I have never thrown this one, but again, it's white. Okay, you can kind of see the theme here. Ketchco does a great job with their mystery tackle boxes with picking out the right lures for the right months, okay? So you can see the theme here, right? Bait fish, this is white, shad looking, you know, that's good. And then, you know, you get into some hooks here they have. This is a 0 gravity jig, which is interesting. I've never thrown this jig, but basically it's big and bulky, but super, super lightweight. It almost kind of just hovers down through the water. So fishing docks, fishing lay down trees, stuff like that, that bait would be really good because it's a different fall rate. Like the fall rate of this bait, it's not like a half-ounce jig that just goes right at the bottom. This thing just kind of hovers and just kind of glides through the water. And again, in the fall, these fish get a little weird. Things like that do work. Finesse baits, of course, can't go wrong with that. We've got some Z-Man little crawdads, which will be great for, of course, the zero gravity jig. And then we have, obviously, these little ringworm. These are hoax fish, which is a ringworm style. That little ringworm style bait, a lot of companies have kind of adopted this style and a lot of their finesse stuff, and it's good. Those little ribs make the bait soft, and they add a little water movement. So when this bait moves through the water, it's moving a little water, and those fish pick up on that. That's what that lateral line on a bass, picks up that movement. Bass don't have necessarily ears, but they can feel vibration, they can feel movement in the water. And baits that have, appendages and stuff like that, and claws, and it moves water, makes those fish aware of what's going on, but yet it's very finessey. So that being said, these baits are really, really cool here. So really good job, guys, for picking out a box for the fall, and mystery tackle box, game on. We're gonna drop a code in the description down below at the end of this video that obviously will allow you to save some money on these boxes, so be sure to check them out, use my code. And that being said, that's cool. We're gonna give this box away along with these other 2 boxes, and of course these boxes here. But you came here today to talk about top fishing lures for the month of October. Look at these guys. This is pretty cool, actually. There's a couple more down here, actually. Look at this stuff. Okay, so this is, I remember last year in the opens, trying to qualify for the elites, we fished a lot of tournaments in the fall, and like I'd find fish, in the back of the creeks, and I'd find fish out deep as well, and they were super finicky. They were super weird. Like you would see them on the graph and couldn't get them to bite. You'd see them blowing up on bait, couldn't get them to bite. And a lot of it is because in the early fall like this, the bait that hatched in the summertime, the little shad, they're very small. They're very, very small. They're small, like this kind of small. And when those bass get so keyed in on feeding on that small bait, it is super hard to get them to react to anything else. It's super hard to get them to react to a normal size square bill or crankbait. But if you can throw some small stuff, you can actually have a little bit better success. So even last year at Cherokee, I was throwing like the 1.0 size little Strike Kings and stuff, and I was catching a lot of fish in the back of the creeks. Well, Catchco decided with Guggen Squad to come out with their own line of micros. This is the Micro Banger, the Micro Recons, the Micro Clutch. Lots of little small things right here. I have not thrown these yet, but this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, guys. Little small stuff like this will actually catch a lot of big fish, believe it or not, because you're thinking like, okay, this is, probably to catch little small ones. Yeah, small ones will eat it, but the big ones will too, because again, it's all about the bait in the fall. As the water temperature is starting to fall, those shads start to really gang up a lot around little riprap banks, bridges, up in the backs of creeks and stuff like that. And so they start to really gang up, and those bass follow that bait all over the lake. And these small ones like this are a big deal. This one right here is pretty cool. Check this thing out. Now what Catchco's done, they've collabed with Guggen Squad, and they've come out with these little baits. And look at this little thing right here, dude. That is awesome. So I'll tell you what else you can catch on these. Kind of going off subject a little bit. Crappie big time. So yeah, crappie would be a #1 thing on this. Like if you wanted to catch crappie, game on with that. But I'm telling you, the bass, you will not believe how many bass you'll catch on this. Now what I love about this bait right here, it's got good hooks on it. Now, small bait like this, you're gonna have to throw it on something super lightweight, right? You're gonna have to throw it on a really small, like a 6.5 foot or 7 foot medium action rod, 8 to 10 pound line, or throw it on a spinning rod. I would probably throw this bait most likely on a spinning rod. I'd rig it up. What I like to do on spinning rods when I'm throwing light stuff is to rig it on light braid. So 10 pound P-line braid to like an 8 pound fluorocarbon. The reason you don't want to go to 10 is once you get a little too high on your line, that means your diameter of your line is going to get much thicker, obviously, the higher you go. And it really impedes the way that this bait's going to wobble and the little extra vibration it gives. I would venture to say that this bait probably won't even run that good on, say, 12 or 15 pound line. So I wouldn't put that for a leader. I'd stay 10 or less for sure, and most likely 8. I think you're going to get a lot better action out of this bait. It's going to feel better on 8 pound. But yeah, I'm going to go in the back of creeks. I'm gonna look for a little bait. You get in a little bait situation, these little minis are good. And again, other companies make some small stuff, some 1.0 size baits. This is more like a 0.5, but the 1.0s are good too. And I like that. That's gonna be a good bait to use pretty much all fall. Let's see what's in here. All right, this is, you know, when I think of fall, I think of, again, all bait. You're gonna hear me talk about bait, right? Lipless Crankbaits. This is a Guggen Squad, again, made by Ketchco in collaboration. It's the clutch. It's a little 1/2 ounce lipless crankbait. You know, you've got different colors you can choose from, but in the fall, especially in October, I'm gonna stick with my whites and my shad colors. You know, I'm not gonna go to like the spring craws and your browns and your chartreuses quite yet, but I'm gonna stick more on the shad colors. Now, here's the thing with throwing lipless crankbaits. I've found over the years, and I've caught a lot of fish on lipless crankbaits. Matter of fact, my very first FLW tournament I ever won it down in Pascagoula River, and I caught them on a Yozuri, which was a 5/8 ounce, but the Yozuri at the time looked pretty much identical to that. I mean, it really did. It really, that same shape and everything. So I've got a lot of confidence in this style and this size bait. But, you know, what I've learned over the years, it's like what rod to throw it on, what line to throw it on. And you're gonna hear me talk about line on every technique that we talk about today. And the reason I talk about line, it's so important, right? Line does two things. Line allows you to catch the fish based on the structure and whatever else you got going on. You gotta choose the right size line for the application. But also, more important than that, is the line diameter, line size will dictate how your baits work in the water, how good they vibrate, and how they were intended to dive down to the certain depth. All those things really are important to the size of line you use. So when you hear about me saying that, hey, 15 pound, you know, fluorocarbon, I'm gonna use the P line, tactical, but 15 pound fluorocarbon is my go-to lipless crankbait line, that's because I feel like I get more bites with that 15 pound test. 15 pound test has a smaller diameter than 17 and more diameter than, say, 12, obviously. So what does that mean? That means that this bait, you know, when I'm throwing a lipless crankbait, I'm targeting depth anywhere from 2 foot down to about 5 foot, not much more than 5. So I'm on flats, you know, I'm in the back of pockets, I'm going down shorelines, I'm targeting that 2 to 5 foot of water. And that 15 pound test line on a good long cast gets that bait perfect down to the strike zone, better than, say, 12 or 17. 17, it's gonna lift it up. Now, if I'm on a lake like Guntersville, lots of grass, I'm trying to keep that bait up above. Some of that grass, I'm digging down in it, maybe a little too much. You know, you can change to a heavier line, and that's gonna make that bait, you know, not dive down to, say, 5 feet. It might only max dive down to, say, 4 feet on a long cast. But again, 15 pound, if you're right out of the gate and you're gonna rig up a rod, 15 pound line is my go-to. The best rod setup for a lipless crankbait, I believe, is like a 7 to 7'4". This is a 7'4" favorite, heavy action. But when I say heavy, this is the 6-stick series. It's not a real heavy, okay? It's more of a medium heavy. And I like that because it has enough tip. For me, I want enough backbone that I can kind of clean that bait off when I want to, or if I'm getting it stuck in grass or getting some leaves or some debris on the hooks, I can still rip the bait pretty hard and break it free of whatever it's snagged on, or just clean the hooks off, but yet soft enough that when I get a fish on, they kind of stay buttoned up. So you want that, you know, like a good medium heavy, not a stiff rod on this application, and that's the deal, guys. And the other thing, here's the little tip. Now, so in this video series, guys, when I'm talking about these baits, I'm going to give you what I consider the little details that make a huge difference, okay? 15 pound line, long cast, I'm reeling the bait along, and I like to give this bait just a little hesitation or a little change in vibration 2 to 3 times throughout the whole cast. And how I do that, I'm reeling it along and I may just hesitate for 1 split second and keep reeling, or I may, you'll see me in the videos a lot of times, kind of rip my rod. And what I'm doing is I'm vibrating it up, and then reeling it, twitch. And that does two things. One, it changes that sound, right? Those fish hear that change and that noise, it kind of fires them up. They kind of get on red alert. Number two, it keeps that bait clean. As I rip that bait through like that, not real hard, but just kind of a medium rip, and again, only 2 to 3 times throughout the whole cast, not like the whole time, it's keeping that bait clean. It's keeping those hooks clean. And that's real important because I tell you, I don't know how many times I've reeled my bait in and you see like a piece of grass stuck on your hook and it's like, okay, and you go to cast it and it doesn't come off. And you're like, dang it, I never catch one. I never catch a bass at all when there's like goop on my line or on my hooks. I don't know why that would make that much difference, but I never do. So keeping your bait very clean and knowing that vibration, right? Here's how you know. When you're reeling that bait, you feel it vibrating a certain way. Pay attention to that. Remember that certain frequency of that vibration. So when you do get grass or debris on your hooks, you'll feel that slight difference. Like, okay, it's not feeling the same. So I might have something on it. You can kind of pop it or rip it, clean it off, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it's back. It's tuning back to that really good vibration. And that is important because being efficient with a lipless crankbait is important, but it's also, this is a fish catcher, guys. I mean, I look back at all the times that I've caught fish on a lipless crankbait here on Lake Okeechobee, especially this time of the year. And it's probably the only lure in my boat that I've literally had probably the biggest days ever with numbers of fish. And I know you guys are, you can agree to this. Like you find these fish schooled up in the back of a creek or somewhere on a flat, and it's like you'll catch 30 or 40 fish, in a day, like in no time on a lipless crankbait. It just, when you find them, it's game over, okay? So that's a great bait in October, and you want to keep that on the deck of your boat a lot. Now let's talk about another bait, a swim jig. This is a little swim jig here by Guggen Squad in collaboration with Ketchco. You can see the marks on this thing right here. This is one straight from Okeechobee. If you watch some of the videos that Hitler and I did here recently, we caught a lot of fish on this swim jig. And again, you kind of see the pattern, right? That's a shad imitation, the lipless crankbait, obviously a shad imitation here. And a swim jig is a great bait in the fall, especially in the month of October, because those fish, again, are feeding up. And those fish are active, right? They're getting really frisky right now. If you got grass in your lake, you got shoreline grass and stuff like that, you can go down those shorelines, you can go down that shore grass and throw a swim jig. A lot of times in the mornings, maybe start out throwing a lipless crankbait because those fish are schooling. And then as the sun gets up a little bit and those fish get closer to cover, that's when you can go to this swim jig here. And I've got it rigged up on straight braid. Here on Okeechobee, obviously we throw a lot of straight braid. This is 50-pound P-Line X braid. And got it rigged up on a Pro Series. This is the favorite Pro Series that we worked on. This is the 7.3 heavy model, which is a nice all-purpose rod. It does well. And then again, this is a high-speed reel. I like a lot of high-speed reels. I don't really see a need for myself to have, say, a 6-to-1. So I just slow down the reel, but I like having that speed that when I need to speed up that reel, I can drive that hook, because a lot of times on a swim jig, you're reeling it through the grass, and a lot of times they'll hit it and run straight at you, create slack in your line, and you're trying to reel up the slack to set the hook, and it's like you can't catch up, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you don't get that hook driven in there as good as you would if you have a high-speed reel. That fish hits, you can gather so much more line, sweep the rod, and you just get a better, more consistent hook set. And so those high-speed reels for me, that's pretty much all I own, 7.3s to 8s, and that's the way we roll with it. So, but that little jig right there is good. This is a 3/8 size model. Obviously, they make different ones, swim jigs. Trailer-wise, can't go wrong by putting a swim bait on the back of it, or some type of crawl, like a crazy crawl, or a zoom. I like a zoom speed crawl. You see a lot of times I'm throwing a zoom speed crawl. This little Guggen bait Saucy Swimmer is a go-to. Definitely a great little bait there. You look at these swim jigs, guys, and I've got some in this Leer Locker box here, and you can look at some of the other ones that I have. I've got some dirty jigs here. We've got, here's another, that's a 1/2 ounce right there, another 1/2 ounce one. I'll tell you what I do like about the Guggen Squad Grass Hero. The size of the weight is on the bottom of this bait right here. So it says 1/2 ounce right there. And it's like, why didn't I think of that? Well, actually, I did think of that because I've thought about that for years. Like, why don't people put the weights of the bait on the particular bait? I don't know what size this jig is. It's a pretty jig. It looks about like a 3/8, but I'm not 100% sure. So if I was really wanting to get particular and like, okay, I need a 3/8 or a 1/2 or whatever, I don't know what that is. And the same thing with some of these dirty jigs here. That's a beautiful jig, caught a lot of fish on it. I think that's a 5/16, maybe. I don't know. But with the Grass Hero, it's on the bottom. You can check it out, and you're good to go. So, swim jigs, really good baits for the month of October. All right, so another bait in the fall that I like to do, and thank you again for watching this video, guys. And again, if you want to have a chance to win all this stuff right here and all these right here, all you gotta do is just drop a comment down below and let me know what your favorite technique and lure is for the month of October. I'd love to hear it. So thank you for all of your help, and thank you, Mystery Tackle Box, for sponsoring this video, because again, they make great stuff. Like here on this side of the box, it's kind of funny. I never saw this. It's a buffet of baits every month. It's kind of funny, actually. Carl, come up with some crazy stuff, dude. But anyways, oh, the other one says happiness in a box. Yeah. All right, so we're totally getting off track there. Let's bring her back into our last bait that I like for the month of October. Dog days of summer are kind of ending, but the water temperatures have not fallen usually far enough that the lakes turn over. And so you hear a lot of people talk about lakes turning over, and that is something that happens in a lot of reservoirs around the country. It doesn't happen here on Lake Okeechobee because the Lake Okeechobee is super shallow, but in reservoirs that have, you know, good depth, it's 50, 60, 70, 80 feet or beyond, you've got a lot of water down deep, right? Down 20, 30, 40 feet that is super cool all the time. So all summer long, that water 30, 40 feet down is, say, 55 degrees or whatever it is in your particular lake. And what it means by when the lake turns over is when the water temperatures on the surface, your surface temp, the first top half of the water column, when that water column finally gets below what the second half of the lake is, again, that deeper water, when that surface temp gets cooler, it's going to sink down and it's going to push the bottom water column to the top. It's going to float it up so the lake turns over. Like literally. And when that happens, things get pretty darn funky, guys. That's a tough time of the year. We're going to talk about that next month because I think a lot of lakes in November are starting to turn over, and we're going to talk about how to catch those fish during that turnover. So you don't want to miss next month's explanation on that. But this time of the year, typically that hasn't happened. Lipless crankbaits, swim jigs work good, but out deep, brush piles, right? You hear a lot of people talk about brush piles in the fall, and it's a great way not only to catch big fish, but catch a lot of fish. You know, because those big fish are out there, they're still in that 17 to say 25-foot range, and you can catch them big. And Carolina rigs work good, you know, finesse worms work good, but I'm telling you, I like to still throw a big bulky bait, especially right when that water temperature starts to change. Those fish, they want to eat a big meal. They want to just go ahead and take advantage of that, and you can't go wrong by throwing this little dude right here. My favorite bait on the planet, guys. That is the bandito bug right there. I designed that bait personally. It's good. It works not only for flipping, for putting on the back of a jig, but also Carolina rigging. I almost won Kentucky Lake a few years ago, guys. Carolina rigging that bait. But just rigging it up on a standard Texas rig like we have here, you can't go wrong. Standard EWG, this is a Trocar EWG hook. I'm gonna rig that up like that. 15 to 17 pound line. Kind of depends on, obviously, the cover for your brush piles. But I'm going to get out there in that 17 to 25 foot of water. I'm going to take my live scope, and I'm going to cruise around, and I'm going to find brush piles. When you find those brush piles, on that live scope especially, you're going to see those fish, you know, sitting there positioned around that brush pile. And when I see an active one, I'm going to start making some casts. This bait right here, you know, it imitates, obviously, several things. A crawdad, but also, you know, a bigger bluegill or bait fish. You know, this is going to kind of wobble down inside of that brush pile, swims down in there, makes a lot of commotion, but it really catches big fish. I'm going to Texas rig it again. Now, the one little tip that I like to do when I'm fishing in brush piles is I'm going to use a bobber stop, okay, because I don't want my bait to hang up on a limb and the weight to fall in the brush pile and the bait never to go down in the brush pile. Because sometimes you got to get right in the heart of those brush piles this time of the year. I'll use a bobber stop, but I'm going to separate it a little bit, okay? Just a little bit. I'm going to leave it about 6 inches or so. That allows that bait and that weight to fall off that limb and still pull that bait. And what happens is, this is what's cool. This is the little things, right, that make a big difference. You pull it like this, okay, about that much. It comes through the brush pile, okay, comes over the limbs, the weight falls, okay? And then when this bait falls off the limb, because it pulls it off, this hits the bottom okay? Brush is all here, the fish is, and this is gonna glide down in the brush pile very naturally and kind of neutral, right? It just glides and swims down because you have all this slack right here. But yet when you pull it again, you know, it's gonna bring it all back together and do it again, and then it just, that last little bit of glide is a different approach, right? Because if you just pin it right to the top, like I do when I'm flipping here on Okeechobee, keeping that weight connected, now when that goes down through the brush pile, it's gonna just swim right down to the bottom and hit the bottom. And that's fine, and that might work, but having that thing detached just slightly allows that weight to hit the bottom and allows the last 6 inches of this bait to kind of just glide and very finessey go to the bottom. And it's a look that those fish don't see a lot. So do that the next time you're fishing brush piles. Give a little separation in between your bobber stop and your weight. Now you got to play around with the size of weight that you want to use. If they're really super thick brush piles, you're going to want to go a little bit heavier. But I try to go as light as I can and get away with it. I don't want a real heavy weight, but that right there is deadly. Again, just separate it like that. You see what I mean, guys? That's pretty cool. That thing will glide down there. That last little 6-8 inches of that bait gives it a nice little look. Line wise, really pretty much 17, 20, kind of depends, 15 at times. Big rod, this is the time I'm gonna pull out my 7.5 foot rod and make those long casts, drive that hook, especially when you're fishing at 17 and 20, you can drive that. And again, a high speed reel. And that's the deal. So guys, those are my 3 baits right there that I like for the month of October. All right, so guys, we're gonna shut this video down. I gotta put all this right in here. But I did forget one thing. I actually forgot an entire technique and lure for the month of October. And I can't believe I forgot it. Like I literally was like putting everything up and I'm like, okay, there's that box. It's right here. Yes, that box. Okay, one more tip before you leave. Frogs, okay? These are the hollow-bodied frogs. You can see I've got about 5 frog boxes. I've got everything from some of the Strike King stuff. There's a Spro. There's a Scum Frog, makes that one. I mean, I don't even know. That's some crazy looking one there. Look at these things, guys. I have so many different kinds of frogs. Okay, we got the Guggen Squad Catchco ones right there. Those are nice. What else we got in here? Look at this crazy thing. I don't even know what that is. I mean, there's so many different kinds of frogs. Okay, frog fishing in October is super good, and here's why. In lakes that have a lot of grass, like Gunnersville, Okeechobee, Chickamauga, Seminole, Texas lakes, a lot of hydrilla, a lot of grass. In the fall, that grass starts to die. And what happens is, a lot of times you go and that grass is matted up in August, right? It's super matted up in August. In October, the water temperature is less light, okay, because the sun sets sooner every day. That grass starts to die, and it creates a canopies better. It creates that dying, cheesy-looking mat that's floating. And you look at it, and it's this giant, cheesy-looking, Swiss cheese-looking stuff. And underneath it is pretty darn open because the stems are starting to break off and they float up to the top. And that's when a frog really dominates well. So I'm going to rig this thing up on straight braid. This might be your last month to catch them really good on a frog, depending on where you live, but October is kind of the frog month, okay? Again, because of that grass dying off, guys. So if you have a pond in your neighborhood or have a lake that has a lot of that scummy stuff on top, that dying dead grass, take a frog, twitch it along. Straight braid, guys, is always a deal. 50 or say 65-pound line, a heavy action rod. But a frog is absolutely money in the month of October. Probably don't throw it much in November, so this might be the last month. The frogs might have to go up a little bit until springtime rolls back around. But, again, that obviously depends on where you live. So we're going to be putting all this stuff up. I'm going to put these boxes. You guys see my deck system here, haven't you? Pretty cool. Check this out. I actually just washed the whole thing. I took a water hose, guys, which is cool. A lot of people don't know this because this is all composite material. So I took a water hose and literally sprayed the entire back of my truck out. And everything is waterproof. These whole things are waterproof. No issues, because if you have a different type of little organizer in the back of your truck, you're liable to have wood. And if it's wood swells up, not good. So the deck system is awesome. 2,000 pounds of payload on top of this thing. All right, the last thing I'm gonna show you guys is pretty cool. This Leer Locker, which is a storage in top of the Leer. cap, which is awesome. It's all hidden up in there. It's pretty cool. A lot of people didn't know I had that in here, and it's actually really cool. We put when we're on the road, we actually put a lot of tripods and like lighting stuff in here. But look at that, guys. You see here some of our tripods. We have some SMC hats. I'll tell you what, here's what we're gonna do. For sticking in this video this long and allow me to tell you all about these cool things, we're gonna give away 6 hats too. So each one of these boxes that we're gonna give away, we're gonna throw a hat in there as well, an SMC hat. So you guys will be able to enjoy that. But yeah, the Leer Locker is pretty cool. And we're gonna put this stuff, because this has gotta stay in here for a month. Right here, put that in there. Mystery tackle boxes go right here. Leave them in there for you guys. Again, the beginning of November, we're gonna pick out 6 winners, and that's it. So hopefully these tips and techniques will help you catch a few more fish. And again, thanks for hanging out, guys. I know it was just kind of an impromptu thing, but again, hey, when the temperature starts to change, I get excited about fishing. I just want to come and talk to you guys and hang out, and we'll see you soon. But we got other videos coming as well. We got some cool stuff going on the lake we're gonna be doing, and a bunch of TV shows we're gonna be shooting. So guys, that's it. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for doing everything you do, and we love you so much, and we will be in touch soon, because I'm gonna do some more stuff, and I don't know how to close this video out, because I just keep mumbling. Just a mumbler lately. Just mumbles. Kind of weird, but anyways, whatever. We'll see you. Bam!